Live from the 607 is the ODPH Entertainment Edition, where we're talking movies, comics, TV, and more. Why don't you join in the conversation? Hashtag ODPH, because here we go. Welcome to another edition of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, hashtag ODPH podcast. I am your host, Ken M. Sitting across from me this week is the one, the only, Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
Folks, we have a lot to discuss in the land of entertainment, so let's waste no more time. Join in on that conversation on social media. Hashtag it up with us, hashtag ODPH. Now, the biggest story of the day had to be the release of the Joker trailer. This came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And we had a whole show planned out. We're still going to get into that a little later, but we have to go right into the new Joaquin Phoenix movie. We're going to be talking spoilers, so if you haven't seen the trailer yet, bear with us, because here we go in 3, 2, 1. Pad, what did you think?
I've got to admit, it's very creepy, but not in like a I'm uncomfortable creepy, but in a this seems very much a psychological thriller type of creepy, where it's definitely going to mess with your mind a little bit and kind of make you go, okay, that's really not making me comfortable.
This had so many overtones of The Killing Joke by Alan Moore that this is just making my skin crawl, and I'm thoroughly invested in this movie. Because when they originally announced that they were going to do a Joker origin story, we always say this is one territory that we don't really know a lot about. I mean, it's been interpreted that he fell into the pit at or the chemical vat and Ace Chemicals, and that's how he became the Joker. And there's been a little more retellings of that over the years.
I'll say his origin story changes with the wind direction.
Right. So obviously with the Jokers that have been playing him over the years, I mean, from the Batman Adam West series to the Jack Nicholson version of the Tim Burton era to the Heath Ledger iconic depiction of the Christopher Nolan films, to Jared Leto's more recent portrayal in Suicide Squad. This one, when we heard about it, was kind of like, okay, not really sure what to think of this.
Right. They announced it, and then they said, oh, it's not going to feature Jared Leto, and then they also announced that Todd Phillips was going to direct it. Of course, Todd Phillips has directed the Hangover series. He did the Starsky and Hutch movie back in 2004, Old School back in 2003, Road Trips, It's kind of like, all right, we're going to bring in a kind of comedy movie director in to direct a movie about the Joker. And I'm like, all right, on the one hand, that makes sense. And then you start hearing things about what this movie is going to be about. And okay, this might be a little interesting.
Yeah, because when they originally announced this, we were still under the assumption that DC and Warner Brothers were going to try going for the shared universe, a la Marvel.
Yep.
And obviously the plans have changed since then. There's now everybody's under the Worlds of DC banner, or they're under the DC Comics banner, because I don't think that's even a catchphrase anymore.
No.
So everything's under DC, so it's kind of open-ended of where this fits in a shared universe, if it does at all. It's now multiverse. So when we're hearing about this and hearing that they're going to do a Joker origin story, and they've recasted the Joker in Joaquin Phoenix, who I thought is a really interesting choice.
Yeah.
Because he can definitely dig into these dark roles. This made some sense, and then we started hearing stories about on set and just the conditions going on with it and script rewrites and just everything involved, that now we finally see the trailer. And like I said, the first thing I thought about when I saw this was Killing Joke. I mean, minus the Batman part of the book.
Right.
But the classic Alan Moore story. And going into it, I mean, we just kind of see at the beginning of the trailer, he's talking to a therapist, and he just looks very distraught and very broken down.
And he also seems very malnourished. Like, there's a couple of shots of him shirtless with the camera pointing at his back, and you can see his spine in a couple of shots, and like he's wrapping his arms around himself or extending them out. And I realize I'm no medical doctor or no nutritionist, but I'm looking at this guy going, yeah, he don't look healthy.
No, he definitely looked broken down physically and mentally. And as we see it progresses, I mean, it kind of shows his beginnings as a clown and why he's trying to make people happy. And obviously, Gotham City is not known for being happy.
No, not at this time.
No, arguably not ever.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest about this. Of all the comic universes, the cities that go into discussion, Gotham is usually pretty dark and gritty.
I'll say they're not cracking top 10 happiest cities on Earth.
Right, of any multiverse. So going in with this, I mean, we see he's kind of beat up, and these gets robbed at one point. And
I don't even think it's he gets robbed. He's working a job, and he's one of those people that you see in your everyday life at certain points where he's dressed as a clown, but then he's holding an arrow sign that like you see people twirling around, especially around tax season. And it says everything must go. And these kids, these teenagers, kids, whatever they are, they're younger than he is, come running by, smack it out of his hand, and go running off with it. And I'm like, okay. And then he goes chasing after it. I'm like, dude, why are you running after this thing?
Well, you figure for him, it's more symbolic to the job and the role and what he's trying to do. Because at this point, he's said in the beginning of the film, he just wants to make people happy. And obviously, this is not working out in his favor, and he gets beat up a little bit. And we're not sure if he got robbed or not. I thought he did, but it could be to interpretation. And as they kind of progress in the film, they time jump a little bit. And at this point now, you start seeing that he's trying to be an established clown. And he's on a subway, and he's just maniacally laughing for no reason.
Yeah.
And that's upsetting other people on the train. Now, we're not sure exactly who these characters are.
Right.
And I think they have more to do with the underground element, so to speak.
Yeah, and you can already tell the kind of condition and where Gotham is, at least in its history, if you know anything about its history, where he's sitting on that subway, and the subway is just littered with graffiti everywhere.
Yeah, it's not exactly a utopia, shall we say.
No.
And obviously he gets beat up again on the train, and he can't stop laughing. So at this point, the take that I'm getting from this movie is they're keeping it more grounded. They're not going to be involved in ace chemicals, at least from what we've seen thus far.
I'll say if they are, it's very much under wraps.
It's very much under wraps. And you just see him just painting his face, and he's trying to, cope with whatever situation he's going through, because he just kind of sees, it's more of like just a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
And I mean, that just kind of underlines the tones of the Killing Joke, where it's just anybody can snap having a bad day. And now we're seeing this happen, minus Batman, which I like.
Yeah.
I like the fact they're not bringing in Batman about this.
Right.
Because that would just, I don't know, I feel that would be too easy.
Yeah.
But you're seeing the Joker just kind of emerge, and you can tell that he's dabbling in the crime element.
Yeah.
They haven't really dug into what he's done per se. They're alluding to he's done something, and the police are chasing him at some point, and he just kind of escapes. And they even make a point like, who wears a mask and does such a thing like this? You see on a TV news channel.
I think it's like I think it's Good Morning Gotham is what it is. I caught a glimpse of the background of what the person on TV was sitting or standing in front of. It looked like it's a Good Morning, and I'm guessing it's Good Morning Gotham.
Right. And you see that you're now developing an idea of where the movie is going, that the Joker is now just fully snapped to a degree. Now, we haven't seen him go to a fully extreme level yet, but this is just like Joker year one, I guess you could almost call it.
Yeah.
And as you see it's going on, you see him going to Arkham Hospital at one point. Not Arkham Asylum.
Nope.
But Arkham Hospital, and you can sense that he's working there. He has some kind of connection there. And they're kind of just dabbling a little bit around the Bat mythos, but they're not going fully in with it. And then you just kind of see the breaking point, and then there is a crime that happens. We're not sure if he shoots somebody. There's a gun image in the trailer, and you see him kind of rolling down what looks like a press conference, like almost like a barrel roll.
Yeah. And
you're seeing that other people are wearing Joker masks. You see almost like a cutout head in the crowd that people are rallying behind him. You think, I mean, they left enough to the imagination that you're really not sure exactly what is going on, other than you're seeing him just emerge from where he looks like he's just finally snapped from everything that's happened.
Yeah.
And where he's going with this, they played like the nice calm music in the background, and he's just going through Gotham and just kind of running around town. They haven't really delved into what the premise is going to be for the film. But they did enough that it definitely seems like this is where he first does his really big crime caper, whatever's going to happen, and he's dabbling in lines with the Gotham PD. And where they're going to go from here, I'm not sure.
Right.
Because obviously there isn't any talk about bringing Joaquin Phoenix forward into the DC Comics film universe, whatever that version is going to be, with the new Batman film coming out. But this one seems like it's a definite standalone with a possibility that it could go further.
Right, yeah. For all we know right now, this is a one and done. There's nothing announced that they're going to continue with Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal of the Joker. Now, whatever ends up happening at the box office will obviously determine if those plans stay true. If this is a box office smash and rave reviews and everyone's praising Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal, they'll go, okay, no, yeah, we got to do something else with him in the role. What that would end up being, I don't know. I'm not the one to make those decisions. But I will say this, in regards to his laugh, I like his laugh.
Yeah, his laugh is good.
His laugh reminded me a little bit of Heath Ledger's, but not full-blown Heath Ledger's.
Yeah, he did enough that the vein of his character portrayal reminded me a lot of Heath Ledger, but not so much.
Right. He's on the path to becoming Heath Ledger Joker, but he's not there yet.
Right. And I think Heath Ledger's Joker is probably the best interpretation we've seen thus far of the Joker. Yeah. It's debatable. It really is. I mean, Mark Hamill should get enough credit for his portrayal of the Joker, too, on the animated series. But this one definitely seems like it's borrowing for a little element from Heath Ledger's and Mark Hamill's for me a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just you're not seeing him just manic and wild and just the sheer force of nature that you've seen him in some portrayals throughout the comics. You're seeing him just almost being like calculating and very, very focused of just what he's up to.
Yeah.
And I found that just to be very interesting that this is the take they want to do. I think it's a great idea. And like I said, the heaviest influence I could tell from this is just it had a vibe of Killing Joke.
Yeah, definitely.
It definitely did. Just, how one person just breaks after everything that's gone on in his life. And you just kind of see that he's painting his face now. He's trying to force himself to smile. And you just kind of see that at the end shot where he's walking down the hallway with the flowers, he's fully dyed his hair green at this point.
I'll say there's one shot where he's kind of holding the sides of his mouth open in the familiar grin you're used to seeing from Joker. And then he lets go of, the two sides of his mouth, and he is not happy with what he sees.
Right. So at this point, it's anybody's guess of where his head's at. You just fully think that he's broken down, and he just finally snaps.
Mm-hmm.
And then where this goes from here, they left enough to the imagination that you figure he's going to try pulling off some caper of some sort.
I'll say they did a masterful job with this teaser trailer because they showed enough to get your interest in it, and they didn't show Robert De Niro.
Right, which I was very surprised at. I was meaning to get to that.
Yeah.
You didn't really see anybody that stuck out so much. That really, like the De Niro cameo we were waiting to see, or his role in it, we're still waiting to kind of find out more details about. We haven't really seen too much. But they did enough just to tease that that something's going on, that everybody in Gotham appears to be looking for him for one reason or another. And that's typically the Joker's MO, because whenever he does a caper or whatever you want to define it, it is something that he wants everybody's attention on him.
Mm-hmm.
Always has been. He does not do anything quiet or subtle. It's always a big event, and it's always very public where he does. The methods we never know. I mean, the Joker is such a great villain because he is the complete opposite of Batman. He is somebody that is out of control.
I'll say he definitely is one that wants to always be in the forefront, always be featured. I think back to the Christmas episode of Batman the Animated Series where he placed bombs throughout the city, where he could have just placed bombs throughout the city and just kind of let it go. And, oh, hey, Batman, there's bombs across the city. Go find them. But no, he did that, and then he hijacked the local television station and started, hijack their broadcast that they were in the middle of doing. And he's like, oh, hey, I'm going to broadcast this to the entire city.
Right. This is just something that he does, and he's so calculating about it that it's always so crazy to see for me. I am just in sheer awe of this. That it doesn't do like the Cesar Romero, that's the actor I was trying to think with the Adam West version, who was such a great foil. This is just a version that is just so grounded. It almost seems like it could fit in Christopher Nolan's universe, but obviously they're not going to do that.
Right.
And if they want to go to the Matt Reeves universe, we just still don't know what that movie is going to be about.
Yeah.
This might have some,
It could be a lead into it.
This could be a lead into it, which, I think would be a really cool idea to do. It just depends on what they want to do with Batman moving forward. And going and closing about this, the movie is set to debut in October that we know about. And honestly, with Batman's 80th anniversary this year, I think we're going to hear a lot more news about this as we're moving forward.
Yeah.
But Pat, what do you think? Final thoughts on this?
I was kind of skeptical going, because I knew this was coming, and just kind of the whole lead up to the trailer, I was kind of skeptical about it. I was like, all right, they're doing a Joker movie. It's not going to be Jared Leto. It's not going to tie into anything they've shown on screen. All right. They're rewriting the script as they film. All right. But then I saw the trailer. I was like, no, okay, I'm on board with this.
Yeah, this one definitely caught my attention. And obviously with everything that's been going on so Marvel this week, and we'll get into that a little later in the show, this was just a refreshing take for me, seeing as a DC Comics fan, that we have the Happy movie coming out with Shazam, which we'll get into later in the show. We've had Aquaman, which was a complete 180 from the typical Justice League universe that we've seen, dark and brooding. This teetered the line enough that, you can see the dark overtones, but it wasn't so much dark and depressing that it really turned you off from it and really got away from the character, because the Joker, like I've said, is such it is a unique character and iconic in his own right, because you don't know where his head's at. You don't exactly know what he's going to do. There's no rhyme or reason except to him of what he does.
Right.
And that's what just makes him such a cool villain. That now that you see him being portrayed by Joaquin Phoenix, and his take on it is borrowing just a little bit from each Joker that he's seen and kind of made it his own, it's going to be really interesting to watch when it comes out in October. But let us know what you think. Hit us up on the hashtag ODPH. What is your thoughts on the new Joker trailer? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hello, this is Tom.
This is Bill.
This is Nick.
This is Jimmy.
And we are Floodlands, and you're listening to you're listening to a podcast on the ODPH.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. And the biggest story going along with the Joker had to be the Avengers Endgame ticket
Fiasco.
Thank you, because I'm trying to find a nice way to put it, but
Nah, that's a fiasco.
Pat, break it down for us.
Well, so we kind of heard some rumblings that tickets were going to go on sale this week. We just quite weren't sure when. And then come, what was this, Tuesday morning? Yeah, Tuesday morning, 8 a.m., we get a surprise, special look at Avengers Endgame. It's about a minute-long trailer that we see, and you go through the trailer, some new footage, some stuff we haven't seen, and then you get tickets on sale now. And the chaos ensued over the next couple hours. I will say this, in the first hour that tickets were on sale, ticket pre-sales for Avengers Endgame had tripled what Avengers Infinity War had. So chew on that for a second. And then what ensued over the next couple of hours to the entire day was any movie website in the country, and I would probably hazard a guess at the world, crashed. AMC theaters, Fandango, Regal Cinemas, Alamo Drafthouse, like you name a movie theater that has a website where you can buy tickets, all crashed.
Yeah, it was absolutely wild.
It was chaos.
Tuesday morning. Like, for me personally, trying to buy tickets, it was an ordeal.
Yeah, I know one person who lives out in the West Coast who, had their stuff set up, had their money in their account, ready to rock and roll, and then, once they got through the queue and they got in, every showing at their theater sold out in 3 minutes.
Right. And like I said, I'm not bashing any site that this was happening to, because the overwhelming demand just crashed every site. And it was just, like I said, it was an ordeal just trying to get on, and obviously with computer issues it was happening, and finally we got our tickets, so we're set for opening night.
Yes.
We got a big crew going with us, but overall it was just a wild experience, and for me, I can't really remember except maybe The Force Awakens,
yeah,
where it was this much of fandom just rabid for tickets and hitting sites and causing delays and crashes.
Right. Well, Force Awakens is the first time that I can remember, Fandango crashed. Because there's certainly been some movies over the years that people have been anticipating, but, although not to that level. I just remember when Force Awakens, tickets dropped. If I'm not mistaken, there was a Monday Night Football game going on. They dropped a new trailer, and at the end of the trailer, it said tickets on sale now. And it was just people were trying left, right, and center to get tickets off Fandango. And then I read Fandango crashed. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
It happened. And then it happened again 2 years later with Star Wars The Last Jedi. And I was like, all right, I figured they would have learned by now. And then you fast forward to now with Avengers Endgame, and it's like, really? Third time of this?
Well, I think the one area that maybe those powers that be that are involved with the ticket sales didn't realize is how rabid the Avengers fan base is. Like, we expect this from Star Wars, and the MCU has built that up.
Yeah.
But with the success of Infinity War and just how it was left, it has been building for a year now.
Yeah.
Literally just shy of a year, if it's not already a year.
Yeah.
Everybody's been waiting to find out what happens and how the Avengers deal with this crisis. And this just goes to show of how popular the MCU is. Like, if you really needed a litmus test of are fans having comic fatigue, I think that just wipes that out the window.
Yeah. I think the other thing with this is, people were excited and anticipating Infinity War, but I think there was a large number of people who, they might not have seen everything, they might have been a little behind, they waited a little bit, and then they saw it, and now you have everyone that was excited for Infinity War and saw it opening night. and then you take everybody else who saw it in the preceding weeks after Infinity War and just mesh them all together, I'm going to hazard a guess that there's not a server built yet that can handle the type of traffic that the movie sites were getting.
I fully agree. I don't blame any of those websites for crashing.
No.
I don't fault them. I know it was difficult. And like I said, it was an ordeal. But that is because this movie is the most anticipated movie of the year. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had a poll out on ODPH Facebook and Twitter, and Avengers ran away with it. Everybody is ready for this film. Whatever is going to happen with the MCU moving forward, this is where everybody who has grown the past 10 years with the MCU is waiting for the payoff. And they've done this so masterfully. The Russo brothers have built up this epic since they took over the Avengers franchise from Joss Whedon, that now all bets are off. It's 3 hours. That's the only thing we know for certain about the movie. 3 hours, 2 minutes.
Well, 3 hours, 2 minutes, give or take. The time can still change between now and release date. I know Infinity War did to a certain degree, and so did Captain Marvel. So 3 hours, 2 minutes is what's being reported, but that can still change. There can be still loud. Because in this day and age, this isn't, the 70s, 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, where once you sent out the cut of the film, that was it. That was done. We're in a digital age where you can send it out, but then you can make a change, a last minute cut, last minute addition, and change the time length and just send it out digitally.
Right. It's an interesting age that we live in where they can do this. And no, they're not going to be adding anybody in from the recently signed deal.
Nope.
I know we have to say that, but we're doing it anyway.
There are people still thinking there will be.
Right. They're not. It's not going to happen. Everything is going to focus on the MCU that we know that has just been established since Iron Man 1. Mm-hmm. And so with that being said, the trailer came out, that whatever the new teaser trailer is, whether you believe it's real footage or not, we're going to discuss it. So in 3, 2, 1, Pat, what did you think?
It didn't cross my mind when I was watching until I watched the trailer and somebody pointed it out. Rocket Raccoon isn't going to know about the Guardians and not being there until Nebula shows up. And I'm not sure I'm ready for that heartbreak.
I'm not ready for when he hears Groot's not alive anymore.
Because he knows Groot's not alive because Groot was with him on Earth and Groot disappeared in his arms. But I'm talking
that's right.
Quill, Drax, and the rest of them. Because I think the shot we see in the trailer where it's him and Nebula, and he just looks devastated. And these are two people who they don't really get along. He knows the history with Nebula and where she comes from and what she's done. For him to look emotional with her by his side, I get the feeling that she's going to show up back on Earth. Hey, where's Quill and everybody else? And then she's going to tell him. And I'm not ready for that heartbreak.
I'm not ready either. In fact, there's been so many characters that have been taken out of the equation. I honestly forgot Groot was the one. I thought it was...
because it was Groot and Rocket that went with Thor to go get Stormhammer. And then they went to, and then Thor, Rainbow Bridged them to Earth.
Right. See, I definitely need a rewatch. There's been so much going on lately. I definitively need this. But going into the trailer, though, we do see some group shots and discussions with the characters that are still, I guess, the new Avengers, so to speak, who's been formed together. I mean, this is going to be very interesting how everybody mixes together because you do see Tony return to Earth. Tony Stark is now back in some variation, and he's hugging Pepper Potts.
Yep.
You do see Rocket with Nebula, and they're having a moment where I guess this is now where Rocket finds out everything. Mm-hmm. And his reaction is going to be very interesting to see.
There's going to be a couple wet eyes in the movie theater when that happens. You also have the opening shot of the trailer where they're clearly discussing going after Thanos and trying to avenge their fallen brethren. And he says, if we go in there, we'll be going in shorthanded. And Rhodey with the coldest line of the trailer because he wiped out half our friends.
Right. I mean, they're being very honest about the situation. You can't fault them about that. Because at this point, the Avengers really don't have a plan. They just know that they have an option to go fix things.
Yeah.
And they have to try. And this is kind of where you see different elements happening. And one of the biggest elements, at least for me, the biggest takeaway from this trailer is Cap and Tony meet.
Yes.
Now, Pat, you had a really interesting theory about this.
Yeah, so of course it's anything Marvel related. So people are going over this with a fine-tooth comb, a super fine-tooth comb. I cannot take credit for this. This is not something I discovered. Something I've found. This is just something I read online. There's a shot in the trailer at about 30 seconds ish in where Tony says to Cap, or Cap says to Tony, "Do you trust me?" And the other says, "Of course," and they handshake. And people, of course, are going through every shot of this trailer looking over it. And a lot of people noticed that the trailer, specifically if you go to the YouTube video at 29 seconds in, that Tony looks really old compared to Cap. And people are speculating that, you know, there's some time travel involved with this because, of course, you know, one of the prevailing theories is that they're going to go back in time to try and change things to change the outcome of Infinity War. And people are looking at this going, okay, Tony's got a lot of gray hairs on his head for the shot, and then Cap looks rather young. Now I know super serum and the whole thing, but still. And then there's also a lot of people because, you know, Avengers and Russo brothers are known to CGI things into trailers that don't end up being in the movie. I mean, look at any of the Infinity War trailers. So a lot of people are thinking that the scene in this trailer is from Avengers 1. It's the New York battle, and that, you know, the suit Cap is wearing in that shot is not the one that you see, but it's rather the Avengers 1 suit.
It's a very interesting theory. I mean, anytime you're going to deal with the quantum realm as they're going to be dealing with, anything is fair game about that. I mean, you really have to kind of take anything in perspective that to get back at Thanos and reverse everything, there is going to be time travel involved.
Oh yeah,
and it's going to be really interesting to see how they pull this off because I am not exactly sure how they're going to do this. Because then we also see a shot of Thanos doing kind of this overtone monologue where he's saying, "You guys could not live with your failure." So now this brings you back to me.
Yeah, it's almost like he was expecting this.
Yeah. Well, I think he had to. I mean, even though he wiped out half the universe, he knew that he still left those Avengers there.
I'll say he's dealt with them in a roundabout way enough times now, not direct. He's only dealt with them directly himself the one time, obviously, in Infinity War. But he was involved in sending the Chitauri there. He was involved in everything else in the universe setting up for this. He knows he knows these guys and girls. He knows that they don't take things lying down. That they get knocked down, but they get right back up and they come back for him. You know, I think he knows in the back of his head, I'm on borrowed time where I can just kind of sit back in my lazy chair and sip on some cold ones.
This is going to be an interesting take where they go with it, because then we see the final shot of the trailer is the Avengers Trinity of Thor, Cap, and Iron Man, and whatever versions they are confronting Thanos.
Yeah.
And it almost appears that this is going to be the end scene of the film, or at least near the end, like the last battle standing.
I still think this is within the first 20 minutes, like we've seen speculated online. The couple trailers we've seen, nothing more in the first 20 minutes or so of the film. I think it's still within that time range. I think they're being so super secretive about the latter half of the latter 2/3 of this movie. They're not showing a thing.
I mean, it'd be smart to do, because obviously we could see how rabid the fan base has been. That this is going to be one area that they really want to teeter around, not giving anything away.
Also, because the other thing of it is there's the one shot where they're flying through space in what I presume is the Guardians spaceship.
Right.
And you've got Captain Marvel, Black Widow, Rhodey, Thor, Cap, and Rocket in the ship. There's some people missing in that shot that we saw in the last trailer that were walking in the quantum suits, being Tony Stark and Ant-Man.
And Bruce Banner, I believe,
and Bruce Banner, yeah. So, I mean, there's now, obviously, they might be someplace else in the ship, but I feel like if they're going into this climactic battle, they might all be within earshot of each other.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens, and obviously the fans' expectations are so high about this that anything less than perfect is unacceptable. So it's going to be really interesting to watch. But let us know what you think. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. What was your thoughts about getting Avengers tickets if you got them? Let us know. And what's your thoughts about the latest trailer? We definitely want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is George Gatton, and you are listening to the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour Entertainment Edition.
Back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and we got to talk about the season finale of The Walking Dead. Because it ended on a very interesting note.
I'll say they took a page out of Game of Thrones book.
Right, as we talked about last episode, and we are talking spoilers, so if you haven't seen the episode, we give you fair warning now. They're dealing with a time jump, it appears, after the Pike incident where many members of the community were killed off by the Whisperers. So now as we jump into the episode, Ezekiel is making a plea over the radio letting them know that the kingdom has fallen.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting because I don't remember that happened in the comics.
No, not. And of course, it's been a while since I've read that particular portion of the comics. But yeah, no, I'd forgotten about it.
Yeah, I definitely know that did not happen.
Yeah.
My brain was not, snapped like Thanos did against my remembering Groot got killed off. But we see the kingdom is breaking down structurally. Carol is, reminiscent about Henry, and they're basically planning on evacuating the kingdom, which they have to.
Yeah.
And this is where they're kind of jumping around, where Daryl is trying to friend and, really make a point to connect with Lydia.
Right.
Because obviously everything has been going on with her being responsible for, killing off the 10 people that were on the Whisper border, shall we say.
Yeah.
That now he's really kind of making a point to bring her involved in the group. But other survivors in the camp there are just badging her.
Oh, yeah. Well, because in the comics, the same scenario happens, albeit, like we said last week, different people get killed off. But in the comics, people want her head, and they want it on a pike. And in the comics, of course, Rick kind of defends her and other things happen. So in the show, I kind of figure, okay, Daryl is taking the Rick portion of this. Daryl is no idiot. Daryl knows, okay, she is roundabout connected to what happened. People are going to be pissed. People are going to want to send her back as a message.
Right. So this is where this is getting very interesting about how Daryl has now taken Lydia under his wing, so to speak, and really tried to make her part of the group and part of the survivors. Because obviously with the damage that she's unfortunately caused, because she's left the camp and now been with Daryl and company, the kingdom has fallen. They're moving. There's been a body count going on, so she's not exactly the most welcome at the camp. But Daryl has made a point to do it. And as they're traveling, Daryl is having a talk with Carol about Lydia and just really kind of digging in about what's going on. And Ezekiel is watching this, and he is not exactly cool with this.
I'll say if looks could kill, he would be staring daggers.
Right. And we don't know if it's jealousy. That's what we kind of think it is.
I'm thinking it's jealousy.
I'm thinking it is. I mean, they didn't really kind of come out and say it.
He didn't have to. What he said to Daryl later in the scene, if not the episode, was enough. It's saying enough without saying much.
Right. Because as they get to Sanctuary, of all places, to go deal with the winter storm that is coming and happening, Ezekiel and Daryl have a little conversation, a little heart-to-heart, so to speak.
I'll say if this is a mob movie, Ezekiel would be saying, hey, back off or you'll be sleeping with the fishes.
Right. Because he flat out tells Daryl not to stay around Carol and to leave the camp.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? After all this time, now you're acting up like this? I don't know. It didn't really connect with me, but I was like, okay, they're going to be fighting by the end of the episode, I felt.
Yeah, I thought so too. It might not be like weapons, but I figured there'd be, a shoving match, wrestled to the ground, punching each other.
Right. I figured something would happen because now they've traveled now, and Ezekiel, I don't know if it's just maybe he's taken a hit on his ego because he's always been the very charismatic leader, and now your kingdom has fallen.
I definitely think that's part of it. I think he's a very charismatic leader. Things have been going right. He finally has a woman by his side that loves him as much as he loves her, and then oh no, the group, the area I've been leading and people have been following me has fallen. And I've lost that. And then he's staring. So essentially, all he has, yes, he has the people around him, but he's losing their trust, I think, to a certain degree. And then he's facing the potential of losing Carol, and that's like the last thing he has for him.
Yeah, he's at his breaking point. He's probably the lowest we've seen him on the entire show.
Yeah,
I'll argue that point. I think definitely he was
for sure.
And then they flash to Alexandria, where Gabriel, Rosita, and Eugene have decided to free Negan from his jail and keep him in the house where the one working fireplace is.
Right, because at this point, the snowstorm that they teased in the teaser for this week's episode is kind of coming in. And I don't know if I wouldn't say it's in full force, but it's 35-45% of the way there.
Right. And at this point, Negan is just in full Negan mode.
Yeah, I love it.
And he is digging at everybody in that room. He is taking his shots. In fact, he drops the line, "Father, not the father."
Yeah, no, he knows he's never going to get another opportunity like this, and he's like, nah, screw it. I'm going to take my shots.
Right. When he drops that line on Gabriel because Rosita's pregnant and nobody is really sure what's going on there. I mean, Negan is just loving life right now.
It was slightly awkward, but at the same time, hilarious.
Oh, yeah. Well, because everybody has so much animosity towards him, and he knows well, you guys freed me because Rick kept me alive. So now you gotta
and it's not exactly a massive community, so more than likely everybody knows.
Right. So it's very interesting to see his dynamic in there, but Jeffrey Dean Morgan just does such an awesome job playing Negan, and just, being the guy in the room that's got to say those lines and just hit that point.
Yep.
So as they kind of go forward, they flash back to the Kingdom group, and you see Lydia is now kind of broken away, and she's walking on an ice pond.
Yeah.
Which, at this point, you would figure, okay, that the weather is bad. There's zombies all around. There's one trapped in the ice. Why are you walking towards it? Why are you, teetering on the ice is going to break and you're going to fall in? And then we find out that she is daring the zombie to bite her arm.
Yeah.
And infect her, because she's now at this point where she's given up and she can't handle, everything that has been blamed on her, whether, it's her fault or not. It's not, but she is feeling so much guilt about it.
Yeah.
That Carol has to come in for the save. And at this point, this is where they're on their way to Sanctuary, and this is where this is happening. And when they get there, Carol is having that talk, and you see Lydia is just finally at her breaking point. But she somehow talks her off the ledge, so to speak. And then when they're going with this, Daryl is comforting Carol after this talk. And this is only infuriating Ezekiel even more.
Yep.
And this is where he's kind of, you really sense that something was going to happen here.
Yeah. I think it fully would have had they not been in like one of the worst blizzards the East Coast had ever seen.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, the fact that they had to go from the Kingdom to Sanctuary, Negan's home base, which is very interesting that they have brought this up now twice this season. That when Negan had his freedom, he went back home and found that there was nothing there.
Yeah.
And then the Kingdom tries finding a home there, and they realize the same thing.
Well, I think the reason they go to, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the reason they went to Sanctuary was if they were to go to the roundabout way, because if the bridge hadn't have been destroyed at the mid-season point, it would have been a quick, easy, over and done trip.
Right.
But because the bridge is destroyed, they would have either had to take the roundabout way, which would have taken time and potentially killed them, or take the way they ended up taking across the river or the pond or whatever it was, in which led them to Sanctuary.
Right.
I think it's not a choice of, we got to go to Sanctuary. It's just, we got to go to Sanctuary or we're going to die.
Yeah, and obviously at this point, they have to do what they have to do to survive.
Yeah.
And then in Sanctuary, they're making the plan with Michonne and company about crossing the border of the Whisperers.
Yeah.
Now, at this stage, Ezekiel is very hesitant about this. I mean, obviously, he's lost some people to the Whisperers. In this situation, Michonne is looking at this like, we have to do this to survive.
Yeah.
We can't stay here. And this becomes another power struggle that they eventually wind up losing.
Right.
Or Ezekiel winds up losing, and they have to make that cross across the border. And doing this, they know the danger that's involved.
Right.
Alpha gave him fair warning.
Yeah.
You stay on your side, I stay on mine. We do this. And Carol, I think, said, we never agreed to that. And you start seeing the Carol of old start coming out again. And this is...
We'll say the Carol of Terminus?
Right. Because we haven't seen that Carol in a while.
No, she hasn't needed to.
Right. But this was kind of the first glimpse that we've seen of her in that kind of mentality since Terminus. And obviously losing Henry, her second child she's lost on the show.
Yeah.
This is now starting to teeter back to that mentality where she definitely wants to get a piece of Alpha.
Well, and normally I would agree with not venturing into their territory because we know what Alpha showed Daryl. And presumably Daryl has shared that information with the group. But I think given the storm and how bad it was, odds are there weren't going to be any Whispers out on patrol. They were going to be hunkered down someplace like they were, just trying to survive. And if they left any tracks, that storm was whipping up so badly and the snow was coming down so heavily, their tracks would have been covered in like 5 minutes anyway.
Right. So it's interesting play they're doing. And they do make it across there, and they're now running into zombies as they're crossing the border there.
Right.
Which at this point, you don't know if they're Whisperers or zombies. I mean, I think that's one of the best aspects about the Whisperers.
I think that's something they bring up even at the beginning of the episode, I want to say, where they're traveling and they're first going, and they're going down a road where there's like two fields on either side of, there's a field on either side of them, and one of the characters looks off to the left, and there's these zombies, the walkers, shuffling along, and they go, Is that a walker or is that them?
Right. And it's a very interesting aspect they have to deal with because they know this is going on. And at this point, Lydia is now getting back, and she is really fallen back in lines of like she really wants to kill herself.
Yeah.
And Carol now has to talk to her again, and instead of obviously killing Lydia like she's asking, Carol says, "I forgive you."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just changes everything right there.
Right.
So that dynamic has now changed drastically because Lydia, who has never had the best mother influence on her before, maybe is going to have one with Carol.
She's never had the best mother influence, and she's also, the entire time she's been around, the main group, I guess I should say, it's been everyone kind of hates her or is against her, and now finally she's got somebody that, hey, I trust you, I believe you, I've got your back.
Yeah, and especially the two people that you'd want in that zombie apocalypse universe to have your back. They're two of the best people.
Yeah.
Daryl and Carol.
And because, she, if she would have stayed with the Whisperers, people would have had her back, but they would have only had her back to the point where she showed weakness, and then in this instant she showed weakness, we're going to throw your butt to the curb.
Right. And during this time, too, we haven't even talked about the more wild action sequence on this episode.
Mm-hmm.
The zombies emerging from the snow.
Yeah.
Because we all thought, I thought it was the Whisperers emerging like they were waiting for the trap.
That was a cool callback to like old school zombie movies, though. I loved it.
Oh, absolutely.
Obviously in the old school movies it's dirt and it's the ground, and this time it's snow, but still, I loved it.
Oh yeah, and you see Michonne holding the line while everybody's trying to cross, and
I thought Michonne was going to eat it then.
I did too. We know that she's leaving the show, and we thought, okay, maybe this is how they're going to do it.
Yeah.
But they decided not to, and everybody makes it across the border. And meanwhile, on the flip side in Alexandria, where they're trying to get from house to house, where the two fireplaces that are working to keep everybody warm, they're walking in a row, they're holding rope.
Yep.
And Judith hears Daryl's dog from the distance, and she breaks away to run.
Oh.
Which is like the worst idea for somebody who's been so smart during this zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Worst move to do.
Yeah.
Bar none. But Negan breaks away to go after her.
Yeah.
Which was surprising to a degree, because you would figure that we weren't really sure about the connection he has with Judith. Mm-hmm. But honestly, Negan sees her as his only friend.
Right, and she really is, because while everyone knows what he did, and they already have their opinions of the man that will take heaven, hell, and earth to change, she doesn't have those same opinions of him. We've discussed this already. He knows, hey, this is the one person who is friendly with me and trusts me. I gotta save her.
Right. And he does. He goes out of his way where he nearly dies in the process to do it. And now he comes back to the group, worse for wear, but he brought Judith and Dog back.
Yeah.
And at this point now, the storm is kind of gone, ended now. Mm-hmm. The kingdom now arrives at Hilltop, which was named, I believe, by somebody on the show as Kingtop.
Yeah.
Which, all right, maybe.
We'll see if it sticks.
We'll see how this pans out. And then Ezekiel just breaks up with Carol to end that.
Yep.
So Carol is going back to Alexandria, and Ezekiel is saying, no, I'm staying here, and everything ends there. Mm-hmm. So it seems like the kingdom has now taken over Hilltop. Whatever happens next season with that is going to be really interesting, because there's still some moving parts, i.e. Maggie, that are still not fully fleshed out of where they're going with the storylines. Is she going to come back? Is Ezekiel going to stay there? We don't know. We do know the actor who plays Ezekiel, I believe, is leaving the show as well.
Right.
That's what I've heard too. So, there's going to be a lot of very uncertainty with Hilltop and what happens now with this new residence. Meanwhile, the group that was traveling with the kingdom has now returned to Alexandria, Daryl, Carol, Michonne, and you see a weird moment, at least for me.
Yeah.
They're being happy.
Yeah.
Playing in the snow, people are smiling. I was like, this is The Walking Dead?
I think it's just relief that after all the crap they've been through the last couple of days, weeks, whatever it is, because it's The Walking Dead, there is no instance of time other than, hey, years have passed. Right. I think it's just, hey, we made it through this alive. It's just, it's just the weight coming off of their shoulders.
Yeah, which, like I said, it was just weird for me to see, because I'm not used to seeing anybody happy on The Walking Dead. It takes away from the purpose.
Right.
The Walking Dead, that anytime there's a happy moment, something bad usually follows. Like, very bad. But for this one, everybody ends very happily in Alexandria. And you see Negan, who's resting and dealing with his injuries, so to speak.
His injured leg, yeah.
His injured leg. And being in the snow, Michonne comes in. Mm-hmm. And Michonne gives him a thank you for saving Judith, which is a very weird moment, and then they start talking shop of the state of Alexandria.
Yep.
Which is very interesting because I know a lot of people are saying Negan's going to redeem himself, but I think everybody's counting their kegs before they tap them. I really do.
Could be.
I really do, because it's going to be interesting how this plays out. And then as we fast forward to the Whisperers, who have been gone all episode, we see Alpha and Beta having a moment where they're kind of talking about what's next. And Alpha is having Beta slash her arm or beat her arm.
I think he's whipping her arm.
Or whipping, doing something to toughen her up, so to speak.
Yeah.
Which is like this weird moment, but then again, this is Alpha, and this is how Alpha process. Alpha needs to deal with pain to go through what's going to happen next. It's a weird sequence, but it's typical Whisperers at this point.
Yeah.
Like, nothing surprises me about that group.
No.
And then they flash back to Ezekiel being on the radio with Judith and kind of just touching base about, whatever camp is up to, and then they break away and then in the conversation, and then a mysterious voice comes over the radio. Now, Pad, who do you think it is?
Excuse me. Oh, well, I have read the comics, so I know there's a lot of speculation out there. I want to say it's Stephanie, of course, who is from the Commonwealth, which I won't go into details there because maybe spoilers.
There may be spoilers too. I think it might be Stephanie. It could be Georgia, the person who showed up and talked to Maggie,
right,
and made the exchange. I honestly think that it has some connection there. I don't think it's Rick Grimes.
No.
That was like the early online. Everybody thought Rick was coming back. No. He's got to do his movie first. Like, wherever that story is going to be, that's going to be the one first. But it is going to be interesting if they do the Commonwealth story, which I think they should.
Yeah.
And I won't give any spoilers away for that. But I guess closing in with the segment, the season finale was a good one. It wasn't one of their more epic ones they've had in recent memory.
No, it definitely took a page from Game of Thrones, where the penultimate episode is the one where what hits the fan. And then the last one, it's got some moments, it's got some action, it's got some stuff going on, but in large part, it's setting up for next season.
Right. I think for everything that's happened with The Walking Dead this season, with other major actors, some announcing they're leaving and some with just some really uncertainty going into the next season, they've really held it together for the show. And they've really done a nice job doing the Whisperer saga without the major characters from the comics. It's very interesting to see from the outside because, like I said, we've read the comics, and to see the certain characters still alive that are killed off in the books and just the mix and match they've done has been really good for some storytelling. Where they go from this going into next season is anybody's guess. But with the Daryl Dixon-led group now, anything is fair game. And I think that adds a little nice excitement to The Walking Dead they've been sorely lacking for a few seasons. But let us know what you think. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. What was your thoughts on Walking Dead this season and the season finale? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Jimmy Gazdick from Crimson Brethren and Floodlands, and you're listening to ODPH.
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. Pat, kick us off with those one shots.
Well, I got to talk a little video game news because there was a video game trailer and a little bit of story dropped today for a video game I am very much excited for. That is Borderlands 3. Now, of course, this is the, if my counting is right, third, fourth, or maybe fifth installment in the Borderlands series. There's been 1, 2, this will be the third. Numbered one, of course, there was the Borderlands, the pre-sequel, and then, of course, Tales from the Borderlands, of course, made by Telltale Games. But this is the long-anticipated sequel to Borderlands 2. Rumored for a while and then formally announced a couple of weeks ago, but today they dropped a trailer with some little bit of information. You learned who the main 4 characters you will play as. So for anyone who hasn't played Borderlands before, it is a loot shooter, or essentially it's a first-person shooter where you get loot from killing enemies and opening chests and stuff like that. Very much in the same vein of maybe a Destiny or any of the other loot shooters you can think of. The main characters are going to be Mose, Flak, Amara, and Zane. Each one of them will have special abilities and a special super ability, I guess you could say. And they will be facing off against the Calypso twins. Now, who they are, what they're about, doesn't really go into much. You catch a glimpse of them. You also catch a glimpse of some familiar faces. Of course, Claptrap's going to be there. Thank God Claptrap's going to be there. Claptrap, easily one of the most comedic sidekicks in video game history. I mean, you don't believe me, look up compilation videos of him in Borderlands 2. It's just simply hysterical. Game comes out September 13th. You know I'm going to pre-order it. I am super excited for this.
Borderlands has got a rabid following, too. So you know what? This should be very interesting to come out. The trailer looked great.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, if it's not Injustice 2, I'm not the biggest video game guy in the world, but it still looked good to me. So
yeah,
I say Pad recommends it. You guys should go get it, too. So for my one shots, we got 2 of them this week. Now, we haven't really been talking a lot about DC's newest film that's hitting theaters this week, Shazam.
Yep.
But it is definitely something you should go check out. Now, if you are not familiar with Shazam, Shazam has been around since the 1940s.
Right.
Shazam is a young teenager who gets the powers of an ancient wizard, and he basically becomes a magical Superman to a degree. And it's very interesting, the history of him, because he's gone through different names. Like, he's been Captain Marvel, and then there was some legal hang-ups with, some other factors going on, so he was renamed Shazam. And, I mean, he's been one of the people that have had, like, the first family, too, because there's, like, an extended family that's been bestowed the same powers, and it's kind of an interesting history. But he's probably just the most, I don't want to say, like, wholesome superhero, but he's just very Superman-esque in his own right, but he's a young child that has the powers of, a modern-day wizard.
I'll say, and it's always interesting to see his portrayal because he is, a very powerful figure in the DC universe. But then you couple that with when people figure out that he is a child, it's kind of the interesting thing to see how they react to it. I'm blanking on what movie it is, or if it's one of the animated series, but there's an iteration in recent history where, the Justice League finds out, Shazam is a kid. And then it's the Justice League at large sitting around a table. It's the head of the Justice League sitting there going, they're discussing what they should do for whatever it is. I'm blanking on the specifics. But then they go, well, we got to talk about Shazam. He's a kid and held that from us.
Yeah. It's a very interesting history. Like I said, if you want to go through, and he's been around since the 40s, Bill Parker and C.C. Beck created him. It's one of those interesting histories of just how a crazy idea of just a wizard giving a young child the abilities of modern day gods.
I'll say it's every child's dream since comic books were created to have superpowers. I mean, I did it when I was a kid, ran around playing Batman, Superman, and Justice League and Marvel and this and that. Every kid does it. So it's what you picture as a child taken to life.
Right. And he's had various runs throughout the history of DC Comics too, since he's added to the DC universe. I mean, Jerry Ordway had a great run with him in the 90s. Jeff Johns has written him too, and he's even restarted the book now too. He's had just such an interesting history, and like I said, the movie is very interesting to see because, like I said, in the DC universe, he is one of the few characters that can take out Superman, and you can see this. Best portrayal ever of this is the classic Kingdom Come.
Yep.
If you have never read Kingdom Come, go to your local comic shop and pick up a copy. It is well worth it. Just Mark Waid, Alex Ross artwork. I'm not even going to get into it because I will talk all night about this. But it is the most iconic scene going on between him and Superman. And you really sense of how powerful he is, and yet he's a young child, a young teen. This is just crazy to see that this actually happens, but hey, it's comics. And to see this being greenlit for a movie, Zachary Levi is going to be playing the title character of Shazam, the actual adult. This is going to be very interesting to see how this reflects in the DCEU, because technically there are Easter eggs connecting it to the Justice League universe and Aquaman. So where they go with this is going to be very fun to watch.
Oh, yeah.
Because it essentially looks almost like the movie Tom Hanks did, Big, meets Superman.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. That's not a fault. That's,
no.
The early sense I get from the trailers I've seen of it, it looks fun.
Yeah.
And that's what it should be. It shouldn't be so serious because Shazam, at its core, it's a fun concept.
Yeah, I mean, you got the shot sequences where they're trying to learn what powers he has, which is typical of superhero origin movies. But then you get to the scene where they've shown in the trailers where they go to the convenience store. Excuse me, sir, I'd like to purchase some of your finest alcohol. And it's like, all right, that's funny. And then the robbers come in and try to rob the place, and they shoot him. And instead of saying, "Oh, you're invincible," they go, "You have bullet immunity."
Yeah, it's just a cool concept idea that you really find your fun of superheroes again.
Yeah.
And especially for DC, to take a shot doing this as a major motion picture is wild. Absolutely wild. And it's going to be just interesting to see how this plays out. I mean, Mark Strong is going to be playing Dr. Sivana, who is one of Shazam's antagonists, not his major one.
Right.
His major one might make a cameo, and if it does, the internet might break.
Yeah.
Because Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has been tagged to be playing Black Adam.
For years.
Yeah. And as far as I know, that's still supposed to happen at some point.
I haven't heard anything different.
Now, if there's a mention of this in the movie, that's going to cause enough of an uproar. But it looks fun, though. And that's the one thing I really wanted to see from this movie is how they're going to do this. In the ordinary DCEU, Justice League, Batman vs Superman universe, I don't think this movie ever got made.
No.
It's too lighthearted, and that's where the character should be at its core.
Yeah.
It just looks fun. The reviews have been great thus far. We'll have our review next week on next week's episode. But I'm super excited about seeing this just for the simple fact that DC is now having a nice resurgence of its characters and reminding you why they have such classic superheroes.
And not everything's dark, brooding, and depressing.
It doesn't need to be.
No.
You don't need to have everybody just dark and brooding. There are certain characters do that. Batman, Punisher, Wolverine.
Certain instances, yes, they need to be dark and brooding, but 24/7, 365, no.
No, definitely not. So this one, I'm definitely excited to go see. I got my tickets for open tonight, so I'll definitely be down there. We might do a quick live tweet about that after the movie's out, but we'll definitely be recapping that on next week's episode. So we are definitely excited to go see that. And this Thursday is the return of Cloak and Dagger on Freeform.
Ah, yes.
Aubrey Joseph, Olivia Holt are coming back as the dynamic duo of the MCU per se. I should say the divine pairing.
Yes.
Because I don't want to get anybody twisted. But they're coming back for season 2. Everything we've seen on the trailers and we've discussed them on past episodes looks amazing. They've added mayhem now to their foil there. And now, I mean, honestly, I'm not sure where they're going to go with this.
Right.
But the sense that I get is it's going to get more serious. It's going to...
Yeah.
They're definitely going to be really developing their roles as heroes as they're moving forward.
Yeah.
And keeping it grounded, too, because I don't think you're going to see any super villains per se.
No.
I mean, they have their frenemy in Mayhem. If you've read the comics over the years, you know who Mayhem is in connection to him. And it's always been a back and forth of what side she's on. How they're going to do this on the small screen is going to be anybody's guess. But Cloak and Dagger was such a nice surprise hit last year that this one, I think, looks even better.
Yeah.
And going into it, I don't really know what to expect, except they're going to be dealing with more real-world problems, which is more of a reflection of the comics, too.
Right.
Because later on, they start developing a rogues gallery. Like Mr. Jip, I think, is the character. They have a Predator that's involved with Cloak. I know I'm probably giving spoilers away from the comic. They haven't really dug into it. But you can go through the history of Cloak and Dagger and find out who it is. This is just something that is going to be really interesting to see. And like we said all last season, as we've been reviewed every episode of Cloak and Dagger, Olivia Holt absolutely crushes it in the role. Crushes the role. And I'm really, really waiting to see what Aubrey Joseph gets into this season, because now it seems like their roles are reversed from last season. That this is where this is going to get very, very interesting about where their characters go. Because at first glance, you would think, okay, Dagger is going to have more issues. Dagger is just, so emotionally damaged, so to speak, that now where she goes for this next season is anybody's guess.
Yeah.
But now, Cloak's life is turned upside down with the events that happened last season. He's framed for murder that he didn't do, and now he's the one that's on the run. And it almost looks like it's such a role reversal to see what happens that I'm super excited to see what they do. Because this is just going to be really, really interesting to see how this plays out. I'm super excited about the return. It's on Freeform this Thursday as we're recording, April 4th, 8 p.m. It's a 2-hour season premiere. Set your DVRs, set what you need to. Definitely do not miss it. It is a show to watch. If you love the MCU, if you love superheroes, it's a great show.
Yeah. But we do have some breaking news.
Okay, break it on.
Let's say they waited until before the show was done to release the news. Of course, if you are a big movie fan or a movie fan on the internet, you know that CinemaCon is going on. Now, if you are not familiar with what CinemaCon is, CinemaCon has been around since 2011, and it has become one of the largest gatherings for the motion picture industry in the world.
Okay.
Like practically every movie studio is here showing stuff off, showing clips, showing trailers, showing posters, and the whole nine. Well, as we record, Disney is having their panel for CinemaCon, and they just released they just put a poster on the screen of their movie release schedule for the year. Now, of course, you have films on there such as Captain Marvel, Dumbo, Toy Story 4, Aladdin, Maleficent 2, Frozen 2, Penguins, and of course, Dark Phoenix is on there because they have taken over the Fox properties, and anything that was started or put into production before the sale took place is going to get a release of some sort. Now, the one interesting thing that is on here, because there's been some news in recent weeks with actors and actresses that were involved in this film, weren't quite sure what was going to happen with this film, whether it was going to get a theatrical release or dumped on a streaming service, or if the supposed reshoots would even happen anyway. But it has been confirmed by Walt Disney Studios chairman Alan Horn that New Mutants will release theatrically. Now, there is no date.
Really?
There is no date. There is no nothing. But all we know is for sure it will get a theatrical release, and it is listed on the 2019 movies slide they put on screen. But New Mutants is getting a theatrical release at some point.
Get out. Wow. Okay. Initial reaction. Holy wow. Because with everything that's gone on with that movie, and just you've heard a lot of chatter wherever you read your news about this, the fact that they've said it's going to actually hit theaters.
Yeah.
This is huge. Like, I thought this was going to go quietly onto a streaming service and we never hear about it. But I know the initial concept, and with the Demon Bear story, the line that they're allegedly we're going to do, I mean, who knows at this point? I probably just gave away a major spoiler. My bad about this. This is how much of shock I'm in. This is interesting that they're actually going to release it. I mean, they should have. But it was just, we heard that the original screenings we didn't go over so well, and they were trying to make it more scary and make it more, because the initial concept was it's supposed to be a horror comic movie.
Yeah.
Which is a different take, because we talk superheroes all the time on here. For them to try doing that route with the New Mutants, who are so tied to the X-Men and the history and blah, 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 this is interesting.
Right.
That they're finally going to release it into theaters. Mm-hmm. And obviously they wouldn't release it unless they were okay with how it came out, the final product. I don't think they would just throw money away and say, here you go. This is wild. The fact they're actually going to release that into theaters.
Yeah.
And we don't have a timetable. We just know it's going to come out at some point this year.
Yeah, the prevailing kind of date that's kind of been said and floated around there is August. And if you can find the image online, in the trailer, from end to end, which you look at it, Captain Marvel came out, which it's kind of the first thing there. And then you look at Star Wars Episode 9, which is going to come out at the end of the year. It's right in the middle. And the date I've seen in the month I've seen float around several times over the months is August. Okay. So if I had to ballpark it, August. Other things that come out of this, Alan Horn did say in regards to Deadpool, quote, "We'll be seeing more of Deadpool in the years ahead, close quote. So if you had any doubts or any skepticism that they'd be doing anything R-rated, because Disney doesn't do R-rated. There you have it from the mouth of Alan Horn. They're going to be doing things with Deadpool.
Interesting. That's big news too, because I know Ryan Reynolds still wants to do the role.
Yeah,
from all intents purposes, from what we've heard. So if he still wants to do the role, and if they're going to do true justice to the character, you can't really tone it down.
No,
even a hard PG-13 is pushing it.
They can have some fun with that, though.
They can teeter the line. Oh yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how they pull this off, because I think if it's not up to snuff, I don't see Reynolds wanting to do the role again.
Right.
I think he'll just quietly go off into the sunset and do something else. But the fact they said there's going to be more Deadpool to come, anybody's guess now.
Yep.
With everybody coming over from the MCU or the Fox deal.
Yep.
The possibilities are endless. That's all we got for this week. So for Padawan J,
thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you as always for listening to the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour #ODPH podcast. See you next time.